Separation anxiety is a major problem right now for teenagers, and I'm a little bummed out that more people aren't talking about it for y'all. I made a video about this a while ago about separation anxiety, and it's really taken off, and so I wanted to create a follow-up one to explain this a little bit more in depth and how you can get help. Now, a lot of people assume that separation anxiety only happens when you're not physically with somebody, and so it can kind of look like avoiding school, staying at home, and not wanting to leave your home, but it can also show up in a few other funky ways, like sending multiple texts or messages to somebody to the point that they stop responding or just completely block you. It can also look like not being able to concentrate or finish your homework because you are so obsessed or so worried about the safety of your loved ones. It may even impact your ability to go on vacation or spend the night at a friend's home. That's why in this video, I want to talk through a little bit about why separation anxiety happens and what you can do about it. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm talking about separation anxiety in terms of the clinical diagnosis and also typical day-to-day separation anxiety that we all experience when we're not able to be physically near our loved ones that we care about. It's very, very normal to care about the safety and well-being of the people that we care about in our lives. Heck, it's one of the reasons why I get like super anxious and worried and stressed out when one of my teen clients is a new driver and they're running a little late to session and I haven't heard from them or a parent. Totally normal to be a little worried and anxious about that. But knowing what you can do to actually stay in control of that separation anxiety and to manage it is key. And that is where coping skills come in. But before we can talk about the different coping skills and coping strategies that can help you control your separation anxiety, we've got to talk about the source of it. Now, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you've probably heard the terms fight, flight, or freeze response. And these are natural stress responses that many of us have when we are stressed out, also known as anxiety. So it's very, very normal to experience one or more of these different stress responses. It's rare that we only experience one. I know in terms of like research and how we learn and talk about this, we like to separate it out into these different categories. And you may find yourself more prone to one over the other. That's fine. But it's really important to kind of figure out like how this is showing up for you so that you know what kind of coping strategy you can use to manage your anxiety. It's kind of like when you're training for some sports program. If you're practicing how to dribble a soccer ball or dribble a basketball, but you're really training for a ballet performance, that may help with some hand-eye coordination, but it's not going to perfect your dance routine. So being able to alter or adjust your approach is going to be really, really key here. Now, I go way more in depth into this in the coping skills crash course that I created just for y'all, and I'll go into that a little bit more later if you're interested in hearing more about that. But first, let's get into that fight, flight, and freeze response. Oh, and by the way, I want to try a little social experiment with y'all. Y'all know I'm a very curious person. I like gathering and assessing information. And so one of the ways that I want to be able to help you better is to get to know y'all a little bit better. So in the comments, when you're hearing the description that most resonates with you, I want you to put that in a comment. So if it's fight, if it's flight, if it's freeze, put that in the comment below. All right, so fight is probably the most visibly interactive response that happens when we're feeling anxious from being separated from somebody that we care about. Fighting can often look like actually fighting and arguing with somebody. It could be picking a fight. It could also look like lashing out and texting or repeat messaging somebody. You're looking for some sort of action or engagement from the other person. Oftentimes with a fight response, we're looking for a response from the person that we're looking for a sense of security from. I think y'all remember in a previous video, I shared the story about when I went out on a date with a former ex-partner of mine, and I was really, really upset. I was very hangry at the time, and I didn't know how to manage my emotions in that moment. And so I actually engaged in a fight response. By that, I literally banged my knife and fork on the table and said, "Take me seriously," after picking a fight with them. So I don't necessarily recommend going that route, but if you find yourself engaging in a fight response, probably want to try one or more of these coping strategies. So the very first thing that you can try is to actually fact check the source. So one of the things that I recommend to many of my clients in my counseling practice is to gather support from 3 separate data points before you settle on a thought or an experience. So if you are waiting for somebody to show up to your house at a certain time and they haven't shown up yet and they haven't responded from your text message. Okay, that's one data source. You've tried to reach out to them directly. Maybe a second data source is to check in on, are they usually on time or are they usually a little bit late? I mean, we all have those friends that are notorious for being like 15, 20 minutes late, right? Funny story about that. I once was meeting a friend somewhere. Two of us were meeting somebody else out, and this girl is like always late, like a good 30 minutes to 40 minutes late to anything. So we were meeting on our way up on a road trip to another friend of ours. And so we told her to be there an hour before we were going to be there. She got there 20 minutes early. And was waiting for us. So that totally like blew up in our faces. But it was really, really funny. So now our friend knows what it's like to wait, but we're not doing that to them again, and they're not doing that to us either. So start out by fact checking 3 different data sources. One of those data sources might be it hasn't been enough time yet. So one of the best ways that you can cope with the stress of that anger and irritability that comes with a fight response is distraction. Keeping yourself occupied while you wait. Setting a timer and then engaging in some sort of activity that you enjoy that takes up your attention can be really useful and helpful while you're waiting. A lot of us, we just like to wait and stew, and our thoughts just grow and grow and grow, and they make us more and more anxious. And now we've created this horrific story about they've been hit by a bear or something like that, or they're blowing us off. Could be a possibility, but probably unlikely. You want to make sure that you're staying distracted while you're giving it time to play out. In the coping skills crash course that I mentioned earlier, we actually have a whole module where we break down 7 different distraction skills that you can use to cope with your anxiety. You can find out more by clicking the link in the description below, and I'll be talking about this a little bit later in the video, more in depth as well. All right, so now let's go on to a freeze response. So freezing happens when we literally freeze up. We stop responding, we stop engaging. Sometimes our whole mind goes blank. We may even find ourselves dissociating or feeling unreal or not in the moment. I know Katie Morton is another YouTuber on here who talks a lot about mental health, and she has a ton of videos about maladaptive daydreaming. That's another way that freeze that could maybe be a combination of freeze and flight, actually. We'll get into that in the next thing, but I would definitely go and check out some of her videos on that too if you want more in depth on that. I'm not an expert in maladaptive daydreaming. It does come up with my clients, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about with y'all, and there's a lot of resources on her channel already for that. So freezing can also happen when you just don't know how to respond or how to engage. A lot of people will literally lose their voice. It's hard for them to talk or hard for them to think clearly in order to communicate what it is that they're feeling. Some of these people may look like they're not paying attention, or they may look like they're disengaging from the conversation, which can be really upsetting if you're a parent and you're dealing with a teenager who's freezing. I get it. Just know that they may be having one of these freeze moment responses. And so one of the best ways to address a freeze response to separation anxiety is to literally ground yourself with some sort of self-soothing sensory activity. So using one or more of your 5 senses to engage with. You can also check out the video that I made about an easy grounding exercise for teens, where we go through the 5 senses meditation or exercise that you can try. Just something that can bring you back to the moment right here, right now. One of my favorite sensory activities is actually to apply some pressure. So hugging a pillow, hugging your pet, hugging yourself. All of these are great ways to apply some light pressure in a way that, of course, you're not going to be bruising or hurting yourself. We do not want that. But just enough that you're getting that sensory self-soothing activity. Again, we break down this way more in depth in the coping skills crash course. So if you are looking for a deeper dive into that, check it out. Okay, so we've talked about fight, we've talked about freeze. Now let's talk about flight. So flight is probably, for many teenagers, one of your favorite coping strategies when it comes to any sort of stress. And that's because it can look and feel a lot like avoidance. So taking a break or taking space can be healthy in moderation as long as it ends. If it does not end, it's not a break. Then you're literally avoiding or ignoring the situation. That's where flight can get like a little dicey, because a lot of people, when we feel so emotionally uncomfortable or overwhelmed, we just want it to end. We want to get away from it. A lot of us do not like feeling uncomfortable. There's a reason why we have all of these like self-care activities and things that make us feel better physically that boost our mood. So flight in teenagers can look a lot like avoiding. It can look a lot like procrastinating. It can look a lot like breaking up or ending friendships very quickly without giving them an opportunity to repair the friendship. I always urge my teen clients, especially when it comes to other teenage friendships, not to be super quick to just totally end the friendship at the first sign of discomfort or disruption. And that's because as teenagers, y'all are learning and growing and figuring out this life thing at the same time. Everybody's at a different pace. Everybody's having different experiences. And just like you are new to this, so are your other teenager friends. So giving them an opportunity to know and understand and potentially step up to the requests that you're making in order to continue that friendship is huge. That leads me to one of the very first things that you can do to help you when you are wanting to indulge a flee response or flight response, and that is to actually communicate what it is that you're feeling. Honestly, feeling your feelings is huge. Some of the strategies that we go over in the coping skills crash course, which are huge for this, are improving the moment skills. So these are really, really great when you can't necessarily change the circumstances or your environment or the situation. Like say that you got a flat tire, like you have to deal with that flat tire, whether that is waiting for the tow truck to come, fixing the flat tire yourself, potentially patching or buying a brand new tire, which is not always convenient, especially when you're a teenager and saving your money, right? We can't always change the things that happen to us or the things that stress us out or make us anxious, but we can change the way that we experience them. And that's where those improve the moment skills come in. There are 7 of them that we go over in that coping skills crash course, way more in depth. Okay, so I know I've been talking a lot about coping skills, and I will tell you, coping skills are meant to help you hang in there. They don't necessarily solve the problem or the situation, but they help you to survive the moment of intensity and discomfort so that then you can problem solve way more effectively. Coping skills are definitely the foundation of any sort of therapy or counseling program, because if you cannot tolerate or hang in there through your uncomfortable emotional experiences, we're not going to be able to help you overcome those experiences and achieve the goals that you want out of therapy. One of the things that I found over and over again in my counseling practice is that a lot of people come into counseling not realizing that they have a ton of coping skills already, or not really knowing the language or the information about what makes a coping skill versus what does not make a coping skill. Now, with the pandemic, my counseling practice, like many therapy counseling practices, really exploded. We filled up very fast. And as you know, it's one of the reasons that I make these videos for y'all. I am one person. There are only so many hours in the day. And so it is nearly impossible to accommodate that many counseling sessions in a week, in a day, in a period of time. So one of the ways that I wanted to really give back and help you guys is by helping you really ramp up these coping skills. I know these videos go into a lot around the coping strategies and coping skills, but it's not quite enough for y'all. So that's why I created the Coping Skills Crash Course. It was originally a 2-hour webinar that I did in the height of the pandemic, November of 2020, where we went over a lot of these things. And since then, earlier this year, I actually broke this down even more for y'all. So we have everything broken down into 4 different modules. It is a self-paced online video program that you can use, and you get full access as soon as you sign up. The Coping Skills Crash Course has helped teens like you experience major benefits, like mentally having more clarity and focus so you can be in control of your thoughts, physically feeling calmer and more relaxed, so uncomfortable experiences are less overwhelming and intense. Emotionally, you are more in control and at peace, knowing that there will be spikes and bumps of distress and discomfort at times, but it feels so much more tolerable moving forward. And best of all, breathing easier and feeling lighter, knowing that you are in control of your experiences, not your emotions. The first module is Coping Skills 101. You'll get a breakdown on what coping skills are and are not, and how to tell if they're working or not for you. You'll also get a brief overview of the 4 types of coping skills and strategies that you need to survive any problematic experience, thought, urge, or emotion. Now, if you've been with this channel for a while, first of all, hit that thumbs up button and let me know. And if not, this is a great time to subscribe. But if you've been watching for a while or this is your first video, you know I am a huge fan of dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT for short, which is why the second module is the coping skills breakdown, where I literally go through the way that they break down the different types of coping skills a little bit more in depth. And I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier in this video, talking about the improve the moment skills, the distraction skills, self-soothing. That's not all of them. There's a lot more in depth to that. Then after that, you get a walkthrough on how to create a personalized coping ahead plan for you and your situation. So if you are dealing with separation anxiety, you can create a coping ahead plan for that, and that's included in that program. And then we wrap up with a celebration of recapping everything that you've learned in that program, as well as what to do when you run into problems or barriers using your coping strategies, like what the next step would be. I have poured my heart and soul into this program for you all, and so I know that the teens that have already worked through it have found a lot of benefit from it. It's really helped to jumpstart their own self-healing journey, whether they are involved in counseling or not. Now, I just want to be clear, this is a guided self-help program. It is not psychotherapy. It does not mean that I am your therapist. It's just the information that I have found helpful personally and professionally in working with teenagers, helping them move through their healing process, or at least get a jump start. There are a ton of added bonuses, and I'm continuing to update those as the program lives and grows and breathes. Oh, and there's also an interactive guided workbook that you can use that has like fun games like the BioBreak word search that you can check out. So if you want to take a deeper dive into coping skills and you are ready to stop letting your emotions and stressful events, negative thoughts, and problematic experiences run your life, and instead start feeling prepared and in control of your choices and decisions, then the Coping Skills Crash Course is definitely for you. Go ahead and check it out right over here. And thanks for watching.